What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in the bunker. Purple State Party. You know what we're trying to do here? We're repping America, the center, and common sense, and popping in the free world. Yeah. You know, in the early days of this country's history, we were ruled by the king and the crown. And people like Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine, John Adams, George Washington, they were sick of taxation without representation. The government in Britain no longer represented America's best interests. That's why Purple State was formed, because we have two parties. We have King number one and King number two, and neither king is representing us anymore. Let's look at what's going on right now with these midterm elections. You know, Americans across the board, when polled, they say inflation, the economy, crime, and illegal immigration. Those are the top four issues that come up. Right? Those are the things that affect the common person. Inflation, the rising cost of energy, illegal immigration, crime, rampant crime that is protected now by the government. It is protected. Come on, open air drug markets, not charging people, vilifying the police. That's not representing us. But the Democrats, instead of running with any of those four messages, want to keep slamming abortion and climate change down our throat. I was talking yesterday to somebody, and I said, you know, I support the women's right to choose. But if I could fix the other four things and all I have to do is give up the right to abortions, it's an easy choice, because that's why I'm no longer a Democrat anymore, is because of their weird stance that they take. Kill the baby, don't kill the criminal, right? The Republicans say kill the criminal, don't kill the baby. Which side, I mean, just strip down to the bare bones, which side do you feel like you belong on? What is more important to you? Your day-to-day life right now, or what might happen in the future? Such as climate change. How much money should we be putting into that? Should it be more gradual? Yeah. As we're going to see in today's episode, we are now living in that age of taxation without representation. Hey, you might support your candidate because they believe in the right to abortion, or because they want to drive the state to only have electric vehicles. But what about the four core issues? What do you think about those things? What do you think about the decline of our society? Because we're putting the priorities in the wrong places. What are you willing to give up to get us back on track? I started Purple State because I firmly believe that neither side is doing a good job of representing our values and our necessities. Okay? That's the bottom line. I can't support banning abortion. I can't support making abortion illegal, making gay marriage illegal. But at the same time, I don't need to have third graders being taught that boys can be girls and they should welcome each other into their locker rooms and into their bathrooms. And if you need a surgery, go and have a surgery. Yeah, not a tattoo. Keep this in mind, not a tattoo and not certain ear piercings. But neither side is being represented right now. Is representing the people the way they need to. But one side is clearly really missing the mark. And we're going to see various examples of how badly the liberals are missing the mark. So I'm going to chug this Red Bull, and I'll be right back with some pictures for y'all. Right, so we're going to kick this one off with a doozy right here. You know, Biden puts out this tweet. It's simple. When the cost of oil comes down, we should see the price at the pump come down as well. That's how it should work. But right now, refiners and retailers are making record profits at the expense of the vast majority of Americans. It's unacceptable. And then he posts a chart a graph that shows exactly his point. Um, I don't, I'm, I don't have any woke points to my credit, so maybe I'm not smart enough to understand this, but that sort of looks like, crude oil went up, down, 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 up, down, down, and retail gas prices pretty much did the same thing. I mean, I think what you're seeing in that chart is a great example of how you buy something, you mark it up, and then you sell it to the public. I'm pretty sure every single concert T-shirt, an iPhone, and cinnamon mocha latte that you have ever owned or drank has the same sort of thing. There's a difference between what somebody buys wholesale and what somebody sells it for retail. And he proves his point. But worst of all in this whole thing is he lies and then proves and provides the proof of the lie because they simply don't care. They've already got it. They understand what I understand. The 30%. There's 30% of people who are going to believe whatever either side says. 30% of people are always going to get behind crackpot theories. The number could be lower or higher. I mean, it could be the 20 to 40% range, but between 20 and 40, the average is 30. So I like to stick with 30. 30 will be coming up later on in this episode, in fact. But then you look at some of the responses, and the responses, of course, are, well, Trump lied 42,000 times, or Trump lied about this, or Trump lied about that. Yeah, well, you hated Trump. So if you hate Trump and Trump lies and Biden lies, then what does that say? That all goes back to why, I'm trying a purple state movement, a movement that takes the best of both sides and runs with that and tries to rewrite how we do politics in America. Because we've got it right. We have the right idea. But, like I've always heard time and time again, it's not the Bible that's the problem. It's the humans that interpret it. So the EU is going to ban 8K TV sets to limit power consumption. They don't know if this will make any sort of difference, but that's what they're going to do. Now, this one, New York City has its state of emergency. They unveiled a shelter for single adult men and illegal migrants with couches, TVs, Xboxes, 24/7 food and drink. And you notice they make sure to let you know that the meals are all culturally appropriate and South American fare. What I really like about this is the way that people like the liberals, the left wing thinks about things, the hidden racism in things, that they want to provide culturally appropriate meals, but they also want to mention it and make sure that we all understand that to remind us who the people are. It's sort of like when they run an article or a news piece about how a black man was mistreated by the police and then follow it up with 3 stories featuring black people committing crimes. It's a hidden racism on that side. I know we're getting a little off topic, but this topics spurn other topics with me and my brain. But that is the hidden racism. When you see a lot of Republicans, for better or for worse, you see who they are. You don't see them as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Joe Biden was elected on one of his platforms being that he was a unifier. He has not tried to unify. He's gone a step further, and instead of labeling people dangerous, that should be considered dangerous, like, as we'll find out later, Mexican cartels, he labels parents who go to school board meetings to raise objections to curriculum. And he raises the whole point that MAGA Republicans are the greatest threat to America. Yeah. But anyhow, back to this. There are, look at that list right there. Xbox, big screen TVs with cable, two popcorn machines, ping pong tables, foosball tables, board games, free Wi-Fi, a bank of 12 phones that can be used to make international calls, and laundry service. And meanwhile, there are taxpayers out there sleeping in their fucking cars, going to McDonald's at certain times of the day to get the leftover food that's being thrown out, picking through trash bags to get their kids a cheeseburger and some cold fucking French fries. But the people who storm into our country illegally get 2 popcorn machines. 2. Yeah. How many popcorn machines do you have? And then the dude adds, this is a place people could come, rest, relax, and kick their feet up after the journey they've been on. I mean, seriously, should I put out milk and cookies every night so that in case somebody breaks into my house and they're tired from kicking in my door, they could have some milk, some cookies, leave them my Netflix, and Wi-Fi password so they could connect. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do anyhow. That's the insanity that we're dealing with. Federal appeals court blocked Joe Biden's plan to cancel billions of dollars of student debt. And of course, you have to slide in siding with a Republican-led effort. If something's bad, it doesn't really matter who leads the effort. But, the court really, the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals made a good decision here because they paused it while the issue plays out in court. Namely, court proceedings requesting an injunction. There is a lot of validity questions to the student loan debt forgiveness. And while in some ways I support trying to give these people a break, I think they're trying to cancel too much debt. There may be some people out there who would meet more of a special needs type category. Maybe people who, just had some slip-ups in life, some bad cards dealt to them, at least a lower dollar amount. If you're making $100,000 a year, dude, you got to figure out a way to pay your debt. Come on. But even Amy Coney Barrett up there, she rejected the challenge to the student debt. And a federal district judge, another one, had rejected the lawsuit. The truth of the matter is somebody needs to settle this because yet again, it seems like the Democrats are just simply dangling a carrot to get votes with no real intention of delivering, kind of like they've done for the black community for so long. Here's a guy who may turn out to be purple. People like the idea of solar farms in the abstract, but hundreds of communities are fighting them because they take 300 to 600 times more land than other energy sources. They produce 300% more, or 300 times the toxic waste, and devastate critical wildlife habitats. Yes, getting free power from the sun is a great thing. The fact that it's there and it can be done doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. We have some ways to go on this, and I hope they develop it because I don't really care where we get our electricity from. I don't have any skin in the game, as they say in the gambling community. I don't have a bet on the game. I don't really care. I don't own stocks in any of the companies. Sabotage is most effective. This eco-terrorist was given a platform by the New York Times. Look at this guy. As a rule, I tend to think sabotage is more effective when it's precise and gritty. He said that the people who threw the soup at the Van Gogh painting, they weren't trying hard enough. He wants to destroy gas station pumps, attack pipelines, disable SUVs. That's terrorism, folks. Okay? Just because they say they're saving the planet, does that make them any different than people who go around and commit atrocities in the name of religion? No. He actually says protesters who do not engage in sabotage, he disparages them because, yeah, he wrote a book about it too. I know this guy. This kind of stuff is insane to me because while I do believe in a lot of their cause, I think the way they go about it just turns people off. And for the New York Times to give a platform to essentially a terrorist, That guy wrote a book about destroying pipelines. He also claims that natural gas and oil pipelines are very easy to disable, citing historical examples. Look, as we're going to see coming up, climate change is something that needs to progress at a different rate than it is right now. We are sinking the ship to save the sail. I love this one. This is a big duh moment right here. No duh, really? Bernie Sanders says voters who are right-wing homophobes, xenophobes, and racists will never be won over by Democrats. Okay. That's great. I mean, and left-wing socialists who want to sabotage SUVs will never be won over by the Republicans. I mean, what's your point? But I love the part about this that's interesting is he says, you know what? I'm falling further and farther. He's talking about people here, right? Working class people. I'm falling further and further behind. I can't afford health care. I can't afford to send my kids to college. I can't afford the outrageous cost of prescription drugs. Okay, but not everybody is in those boats. Those are some specific boats. By the time you get down to the prescription drugs, my prescription drug cost is $0. Nobody in my family uses them. At least in my immediate family. But again, healthcare, college, prescription drugs. Okay. There are things that we can do about that. But at what cost? Because with the Democrats, what we're seeing now is that if you want affordable health care and you want affordable college, you're going to have to accept crime and street people. California is going to end its state of emergency almost 3 years after it was instituted. All they really concretely accomplished was destroying a portion of a generation of kids. That's all they've done. That's all they did with their lockdowns. There is no proof that they really did any better or any worse, and it's minuscule, the differences. All right? Yeah, see here again, now they're starting to come home to roost. We already knew that open-air drug markets and allowing people to sleep on the streets was not a good way to go. See, Democrats tend to, liberals especially, the really extreme liberals, they tend to see everything progressing on a golden path of beauty and ease. When the reality is, and we've seen this time and time again, these kind of policies are all slippery slopes. They all go downhill and they rapidly get out of hand. So he's going to ban them. They're going to, Ted Wheeler here, remember that guy? We need to move our scattered, vulnerable, homeless populations closer to the services that they need. They need to get off drugs and alcohol, okay? That doesn't apply to all of them, but it applies to a majority of them. And of course, it's been fueled by a housing shortage. Keep that in mind. Housing shortage. Coronavirus, because again, we got to blame the coronavirus, and high drug addiction rates. Okay. I think you can just go with high drug addiction rates. You allow people to do drugs in your city. You allow people to sell drugs and consume drugs in the streets with no consequences. We already know the numbers. Your program has had the bare minimum, if even that, of an impact. Very few people have taken you up on your drug treatment of, because you know why? At the end of a day, a drug addict wants drugs more than he wants a bed. Drug addict wants drugs more than he wants a family or a job or a roof. Yes, they don't pay taxes, they don't contribute, and quite frankly, they're breaking the law. And you're going to have to start doing it. We want to steer people, towards the help they need to get off and stay off the streets. That's the goal. Okay, but again, a goal without a plan is just a dream. And that's what they've got here. They're just going to move them to a different campsite. Okay. Without an economic message, Democrats will never close the deal. This is where we start to talk a little bit about how out of touch they are. Stacey Abrams spotted at a grocery store reminding parents this would all be cheaper if they had aborted their kids. She was asked in an interview, it's on video, talking about the economy, inflation, and the high prices of things. And she brings up abortion. Kids are expensive. Okay, lots and lots of people are out there struggling, and not having a kid is not going to do anything for them. Their kids are already grown. They already have kids. They're too young. They're too old. But this is what they do. The Democrats are steering you back to their agenda. They are taking advantage of the fact that they have managed to make you hate Republicans. But look at the issues. Look at the responses to the issues. Don't look at a bunch of numbers. Look at responses. Look at what they talk about. Look at what they try to do. Look at these people. Climate activists glue themselves to car dealerships but complain when staff turns off lights and heating. This one is just beyond fucking awesome. They go into a VW Porsche dealership and glue their hands down. The staff let them continue the demonstration. However, when clock off time arrived for the employees, they switched off the lights and heating and left the activists by themselves. These fuckers are glued to the floor. The employees just turn off the lights and the heating. Look at his response. One of the protesters has taken to Twitter to complain about how the staff didn't do anything to help him. Gianluca Grimalda said, they refused our request to provide us with a bowl to urinate and defecate in a decent manner while we were glued and have turned off the heating. So you show up to a place, you glue yourself to the floor, cause basically the dealership to shut down for the day, and you say, hey, they didn't give us a bowl to poop in. They didn't give them food. That's the price you pay there, Gianluca. And he paid another price because he had damage to his hand as a result of the gluing to the floor. Whoa. This is how we have to respond to these people. They have a point. We need to stop burning so much fossil fuel and coal and polluting the planet. Talk to fucking China. Talk to China. Go over to China and you talk to them. Because the United States, remember what we said, like 240 coal burning facilities that make electricity. China, 1,100. Go talk to them. Go glue yourself to their floor and see what the Chinese officials do. Okay? Because it ain't going to be pretty. Speaking of not pretty, look at this. Okay? Before we start this, I want to remind people of a little stat that's out there. It's the 30% one. But in a lot of polls, kind of the average, 36% of Republicans think Trump had the election stolen from him. Okay? 32% of Democrats think Hillary Clinton had the election stolen from her. From her? Yes, her. As I said early on, I was very suspicious of mail-in ballots. I was very suspicious of the change in the laws and the way we handled the 2020 election. And before the election results were even remotely counted, I was saying, hey, whoever loses is going to complain that it was a rigged election. I knew this. And then we see this. LA County voter errors could overturn failed Gascon recall. They've already found 1,500 valid signatures that were thrown out. So now they're going to continue on. And look at some of this stuff. They found a 39% error rate after reviewing 2% of the failed invalid signatures. Some of the signatures were marked valid and entered in the computer as invalid. Mistake? Or was it done on purpose? Others were thrown out for being duplicates, but they didn't count one of them. So if you had 2 votes, only 1 vote counts, but they didn't count that vote. Some said that they were disqualified because a person had moved when it was really the registrar that was to blame for not updating the correct address. So nobody actually checked to see why the addresses didn't match. They moved within LA County, but the registrar never updated it. The registrar's fault. In other words, signatures should be valid. The most glaring one was that they were invalidated for not being registered voters, even though they're on the roll. The complaint against the LA County Registrar of Voters is full of allegations that, if proven to be true, should cause every voter in LA County grave concerns about the integrity of the election process, said the attorney behind the lawsuit. It should be of grave concern for us all. Yeah. And here they're talking about some of the signatures were invalidated, but the numbers that the requirement that they had to meet should have been lower because there was 500,000 inactive voters on the LA County registrar rolls. So the number of voters, it's all based on percentages, should have been lower. It was dirty politics all the way across. They're blocking them. They're trying to obstruct them. Nobody seems to care. And of course, the reason for the obstruction, yeah, there you go. COVID-19. You got to throw that in. There you go. And they've got to prepare for the next election because, God forbid, Gavin Newsom doesn't get enough votes. We see I'm just going to go on by that. This is sad. This is, I don't want the environment to lose. I want to clean up the environment, but I want to do it in a responsible, pragmatic, logical type of way. Study finds California's greenhouse gas reductions could be wiped out by the 2020 wildfires. It's called Up in Smoke. I like that. That was a good movie, Cheech and Chong. But, there's a bunch of numbers in here, 65 metric tons. But in other words, from 2003 to 2019, we had a 13% drop in our emissions. All of those gains, that 13% is gone because of wildfire. Mother Nature is an absolutely savage beast. Man cannot hope to ever win against Mother Nature. Mother Nature will always find ways of winning in different ways. Figure out this one way and they'll figure out another way, So yes, we must clean up our act, but it's on other countries to do that. And how much sacrifice do we need to make for something that we may not ever be able to change? Because as long as Mother Nature's out there wreaking havoc and China's wreaking havoc and lots and lots of other countries other than China are wreaking havoc, we may be doomed and we may just run ourselves right off the road for no bloody purpose. Speaking of no bloody purpose, rival drug cartels open fire on each other with 50 caliber weapons. These are machine guns. These are the kind of machine guns the Army and the Marines and the Air Force and the Navy, everybody uses 50 cals. The BMG. I'm going to call them the Ma Deuce. But that's what they're doing over there. But what really is interesting about this piece is that here we talk about Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott declared Mexican drug cartels to be a terrorist organization, granting law enforcement new authorities to combat the group. Abbott urged President Biden to do the same. And see down at the bottom, America's fentanyl cartels is an invasion. So Abbott has declared them a terrorist organization. See, they're not words, his deeds. What did he actually do? He declared them terrorists, right? If the president would do that, it would trigger a federal law that would allow them to go into the bank accounts and get billions of dollars from the cartels to start fighting back. Why hasn't Biden do this? Why didn't Biden do this before Abbott? What I want to know is, why didn't Trump do it? See, those are the actions that I'm talking about. You could say whatever you want, but what are you going to do? Right now, down in Mexico, they are going to install Chinese scanners at the border. scanners that are owned and essentially operated by the Chinese government. We are having an absolute crisis here in America over fentanyl. Those deaths are only going to start going through the roof because more and more people, more and more dealers are going to start peddling it and start lacing it. And the new meth that's coming over from China. We pussyfoot around with China, and China sends deadly drugs to Mexico. Mexico sends those drugs to America. Yes, sure, you can blame the end user. You could say that if it was not for our appetite, the Mexican cartels would not be doing this. By the same token, though, you could say the same thing about our response. Yeah, the economy is strong as hell. I'll have whatever he's having, drinking. Yeah, inflation at a 40-year high. They were asked about, the White House was asked about it. And again, core inflation went up 6.6%, the largest increase since August of 82. And still the White House says, no, we've done the right thing. Everything's in good shape. Jean-Pierre says gas prices have gone down, not here in California. And she touts a plan to reduce the cost of hearing aids. Great. That's great. But I don't see how that affects inflation. Cynthia Rouse here says it'll start to bring, down inflation. And it doesn't directly speak to food. It goes to medical care. It goes to energy costs. And we're focused on trying to help families get through this. By what? Weatherizing their home? We're focused on helping to make that transition to clean energy in a way that brings down energy costs. And yet they're not. The energy costs aren't going to go down. That's unrealistic, and they know it. They've got you by the short hairs, and they're going to charge you what you want. Yeah, DC, that's... All right, no. You know what? Correction. This is just real quick here. So, we're not going to get into this political gift to the GOP, but they want to allow illegals to vote in certain elections. Okay? This is great. But look at this slide right here is really just the part that really just is like, all right, see, we already know it's a bad idea, yet they're going to go ahead with it. There's nothing in the measure that prevents employees at embassies of governments that are openly hostile to the United States from casting ballots, or foreign students who are studying abroad in Washington. You made such a big deal about your fake Russian collusion, and now they want to give a pipeline into Washington, D.C. politics. A pipeline to let illegals vote. Essentially, anybody in the country can vote in an election. They just have to show up? Oh, God. But meanwhile, they label the Georgia voter laws to be Jim Crow on steroids. Jim Eagle. Remember all that? They pulled the baseball all-star game, took it to a place that actually has more repressive rights. Joe Biden comes from a state that has more repressive voting laws. But yeah, Georgia set all kinds of records. The numbers aren't really important, but plenty of people from in Georgia came out and voted. And so after 7 years, DA's Public Integrity Unit charged 15 people with crime. This was in, I believe, Fresno. And it spotlights the kind of corruption that's going on at the local level and all the way up through, the state government and probably, into the federal government. We already know that. I mean, come on, Just the Pelosi's and their stock trading is proof enough that the corruption exists up there. But it leads into the next article I read, which was from Torque News. Are mandatory prison terms laws overdue for carrying any firearm in a car? I don't understand how you transport to a gun range or to a gun competition or whatever. But that's the kind of liberal thinking that you want to have mandatory prison time for carrying a firearm, but not mandatory prison time for, let's say, coming into the country illegally or dealing fentanyl or, shitting in public, attacking people. I mean, they sit around and they allow the street people population to just grow and grow and grow. And there's people who are now like getting just pushed in front of trains, randomly stabbed in the head with scissors. Just, like, are you kidding me? But sure, carrying a gun in your car, that should be a mandatory prison time, right? But meanwhile, the people that are making these laws are the most corrupt people out there. And that's part of their plan. Like I've always said, they want you on the right and the left so that you can't see what they're doing in the middle, which is stealing shit. Yeah, California's economy headed for a disaster. And people say, well, now it's this or that, or it's, this isn't really happening. But here's something that really kind of, IPOs. When a company first lists shares for sale on the stock market, all right? In 2021, we had 81 companies conduct IPOs, okay? Where did it go? There you go. Well, you knew the answer before I even said it. We had 9 in 2022. So from 81 down to 9. And the governor says there's nothing to worry about. Okay. Oh, boy. Last thing here. This is going to be the last one, man. Last of my ramblings. San Francisco is going to spend $1.7 million to build a single public toilet. This, believe it or not, is what's called a learning opportunity. My daughter hates it when I use that term. I think it's a boomer thing that I probably picked up from my mom. But it's a learning opportunity. The proposed facility will have one toilet in a 150-foot space. Okay? It's not very big. Probably somewhat about the size of my studio here. Construction costs have risen, supply chain challenges, but it's a maze of planning, permitting, review, and public outreach. That's where the money gets spent. The learning opportunity here is let's break down every step in this process and figure out where we can reduce costs. Because as we've been hearing all episode, lots of things get blamed on the housing crisis. Okay? But when the government, like they did here in California, completely controlled by Democrats, sets up a system that can legitimately make a toilet cost $1.7 million to install. Obviously, it's in public, so that changes the laws, changes some of the requirements. And then you're going to bellyache and say, our problem is housing. No, our problem is you. Okay? You're the ones who put all this shit in. You'll be able to explain some of it. I mean, obviously, you got to make sure the thing's safe, so it needs to be inspected. But how about you draw up some plans, inspect the plans, build the building, inspect it, and move on? No, we're going to have all kinds of environmental and social and equity studies. And how much is that all going to cost? Because that's going to have to be prepared. So you might have like a PR company, and you give them $100,000 to figure out what the fucking name of the thing is. That's the kind of government waste that we're seeing. And this is the learning opportunity that may explain some of it. That San Francisco spent $500,000 to develop new trash can prototypes because city leaders weren't happy with the look of off-the-shelf cans. What? Okay, you want to raise that through charity? You want to have a public group that sponsors that? Fine, great. No problem. Make new toilets. But spending city money with the kind of problems that San Francisco has, San Francisco's a ghost town. And as we talked about a few episodes ago, when the leases are up, the place is going to be a real ghost town. And it's going to take 3 years. You see what I mean? When you pay more for shipping, don't you get it faster? If you spent $1.7 million to install a toilet, wouldn't you expect that toilet to be installed like within a few hours? Think about it. 3 years and $1.7 million to build one toilet. Will we investigate it? Will we figure out where all that money is going? Probably not. I wouldn't be surprised if it's greenlit. But it is so crazy that Gavin Newsom is saying that he will block it unless they can prove there's no cheaper option. So that's basically like telling a criminal to prove that he's guilty. Ain't going to happen, buddy. Best of the week, Democrat protected species, California Delta smelt, the Northwest spotted owl, violent criminals, illegal aliens, cartels, fentanyl, and the Hunter Biden and the family. Well, that's not a stretch. And the problem is that the people who are in the Democratic Party that are more purple understand something about this graph right here, this pictograph from Bronco, one of the best political cartoonists ever. I care about the smelt up to a certain point, and I care about the owl up to a certain point. The rest of those people I don't care about. And the rest of those people, the Republicans say they're going to do something about. So I know what side I'm sitting on. What side are you sitting on? Because the 2 at the end are not worth the 4 at the other end, or 5 at the other end when you include cartels and fentanyl. You see, that's what we have to start thinking about now, folks, is that's the balance. One side has this many pluses and this many minuses. The other side has this many pluses and this many minuses. Where do you line up? The thing about it is, purple state just wants to take the pluses. Cowboys just glad crowd is booing someone else for once. Yeah, I wouldn't expect Joe Biden to get a standing ovation in a place like Texas, but whatever. Yeah, Biden's still going to be president, even though all that's sinking all Democrats in the red wave. And, you know, it's not about winning. It's about, look, you got up to bat, man. We gave you a chance, and you embarrassed us. You didn't unify us. You made us weaker. You declared, essentially, that the whole slogan of Make America Great Again is racist. You've lied and lied and lied. I don't think Biden has really delivered any truth, and I don't think he's delivered any help. He has dangled carrot after carrot in front of us. Gavin Newsom has dangled carrot after carrot in front of us, and he has imposed his will on the state of California. And sadly, I can see both of them keeping their job. So this was the best of the week, because this really explains the whole next little topic that I'm going to close with, which is giving people justification for shitty behavior. And so essentially what you're telling people is that Republicans are so bad, it's okay to call them Hitler. It's okay to say that anything the other person says is racist, even if it's a black person. You can now be racist to black people right here because they're members of such an evil group. So whatever you do to them is completely justified. They do that with certain communities. You are so oppressed that whatever you do should be excused. You are so oppressed that whatever you do, we're going to give you an A. We're going to let you pass. Rewarding that bad behavior. Rewarding not trying. That's what we are seeing a lot of right now out of the Democratic Party. We will reward you for being a bad human. We will reward you for being an illegal alien. We will reward you for doing drugs on the streets. We will reward you for every bad choice as long as you vote for us. That's one of the things that just drove me away from both parties was the fact that they're willing to trade hatred for votes. It's okay to call Herschel Walker the N-word because he's an evil MAGA Republican. But meanwhile, they're preaching acceptance of certain groups. They're saying, oh, you can't be mean to people who are transgender. Fine, great. We can't be mean to people who are transgendered. Two thumbs up, and I don't mean that sarcastically. I'm fine with it. But it's not okay to then turn around and use the N-word on Herschel Walker because he's an evil Republican. It's one way or the other. And you can't sit there and try to strip away the rights of gay couples simply because you hate gay couples. That's the part of purple that I think is the most important. Certainly one of the top three. Top three. We don't want to be based in hatred of anybody. We just want logic. We just want, like I always say, common sense. Is that too much to ask for? Some common sense and some decency? Some decency to follow your own rules? To follow your own morals? Nah, that doesn't get clicks. That doesn't get votes. That doesn't make people feel good about themselves. Saying, oh, look what I did. I let Herschel have it because he's an evil Republican. So that allowed you to be racist, and some people just took that opportunity. That's the kind of spicy times we live in. I love you. Thank you for supporting me. Please comment, please like, please subscribe, and please be good to one another. And always remember, I'm Purple State, and so are you. Peace, y'all. Dollar bill.